Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us tonight at this community event. I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce myself. I'm Clinton Carlson. I'm currently serving as the captain in the United States Coast Guard, and I'm stationed at Coast Guard headquarters, where I'm currently the director of maritime law enforcement, defense operations, and maritime security policy. I've served across the globe from Alaska to the Middle East. My wife Cindy and I currently live at JBAB, Joint Base Anacostia Bowling, and we have one grown daughter. She's a current chemical engineer, currently working in New Jersey. We also happen to have a deranged Shiloh Shepherd called Hope. I'd like to thank the Mantua Elementary for providing us this venue, and to the organizers for scheduling this forum. All at-large and Providence candidates were invited, and I've spoken with the organizers and understand that their intention was to have as many candidates as possible here tonight to hear the questions and to provide answers to the community, so that the voters can make an informed decision on November 5th. And on that note, please vote. Before I introduce our candidates, let's take a few moments to talk about the format and the guidelines for tonight. If you haven't done so already, please silence your cell phones. If you need to speak on your device during the event, please step outside. At the entrance, there were index cards to write down questions. I'll be selecting questions from those submitted randomly, and I'll strive to present an interesting and diverse mix of questions to the candidates on the issues that are related to the Fairfax County Public Schools. Now, as the moderator, I'm not going to ask any questions that include foul language or personal attacks, insults, or anyone that does not relate directly to the Fairfax County Public School System. But please feel free to submit additional questions throughout the forum. Simply write them down, raise your hand, and one of the volunteers will collect them and bring them up for me tonight. The organizers have also provided 3 questions to be asked at tonight's forum. One of those questions concerns capital improvements for the schools in the Woodson, Frost, Mantua Pyramid. There's a question concerning the boundary change policy at 8130, and a question about overcrowding at the schools at the Woodson, Frost, Mantua Pyramid. Now, freedom of speech is the cornerstone of our democracy and of this forum. Disruptive behavior, including attempts to stifle the views of the candidates because they may be different from your own, will not be tolerated, and I'm sorry, but you'll be asked to leave the forum. Each candidate will be given a 3-minute introduction, and then we'll begin the question and answer portion of the forum. Now, each candidate will also have an opportunity to answer each question, and they'll have 2 minutes to respond to each question. The candidates will provide their answers one at a time from the order in which they are seated, and this order reflects a random drawing conducted just a short while ago. There will be no candidate rebuttals. A timekeeper is here and will indicate when each speaker's time is up. Our event runs from 6:30 until 9, and we'll try to get through as many of the questions as possible. If I finish with the submitted questions, we'll move on to closing statements. But in any case, closing statements will occur no later than 8:45 p.m. Each candidate will have 2 minutes in which they may provide a closing statement. A volunteer will be recording this forum, and we hope to make it available to the public online for those who were unable to attend tonight. I've spoken with the candidates in advance. They've all agreed to the format and the guidelines that have just been described. So, now, without any further ado, let me introduce the candidates in attendance tonight in their randomly selected order. The first one is at-large candidate Priscilla DeStefano. No. Number 2 will be Providence candidate Andrea Bayer. Number 3 is at-large candidate Cheryl Buford. And number 4 is at-large candidate Vincent Palathingal. Now we'll move into the opening statements in that order. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you to this community for hosting such an event. I'm really excited to be here because I'm always grateful for the opportunity to introduce who I am and why I'm running. My name is Priscilla DeStefano. I am a lifelong Fairfax County resident. Both of my parents came here from El Salvador back in the 70s. I was born in Alexandria, but I came to Burke, Virginia when I was just 2 months old. I was raised there by my mother and my grandmother, along with my 2 siblings. I went to Terror Center in Burke, Virginia, and then Robinson for 7th through 12th grade. But my senior year, I became pregnant with my first son. So I transferred to Mountain View Alternative School over in Centerville, received my diploma, and then had my son that fall. That spring, I was enrolled at Northern Virginia Community College in Annandale. And then once I received my associates, I went over to George Mason and received my marketing degree from the business school there. So I've been here my whole life in Fairfax County. When I got married to my husband, I convinced a lifelong Marylander to come down to Fairfax County. So he and I now live 2 miles away in Fairfax. I have a second son now who's 3. He's enrolled in the preschool program with Fairfax County for special needs because he does have a communication delay. But I am facing so many different aspects of Fairfax County now. I have the perspective of having gone through K through 12 myself, having gone to Mountain View Alternative School, having kids enrolled right now. My son is now 12. He's in 6th grade. And then also sitting in the IEP meetings for my son and learning what it's like to sit on that side of the table and have to fight for resources for him because he is enrolled in this program. So I am running because I feel like I'm not represented on this school board. 10 of the 12 school board members currently do not have children enrolled in the public schools. And so to me, that is not enough representation, right? Public servants, our government is supposed to be representative of the public. And so when you have 12 school board members that are making decisions, we need a seat at the table. I want to make sure that every policy that is passed in this county is focused on education and impacting achievement directly. I want the $12 billion that this school board is going to spend in the next 4 years to be spent on achievement, on getting our kids out of trailers. Over 800 trailers exist in Fairfax County today. 22,000 children are educated in trailers. That's affecting their safety, their educational environment. This school board should be focused on these issues. And right now I feel like they have gone off track, and I think it is due to the fact that 10 of them are untouched by the policies that they're pushing. And so I'm most passionate about bringing that voice. I am also a Hispanic woman. 25% of the students in Fairfax County are Hispanic, and I've come from this community. I know what it's like to live with a single mother, to have an immigrant mother, to be raised by my grandmother who does not speak the language. And these are all issues that I want to bring and perspectives I want to bring to the school board, and it starts on November 5th with your vote. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Hi, good evening. My name is Andrea Bayer. I'm a native. I grew up going to these schools. I went to Timberlane Elementary, Whittier Junior High, and Falls Church High School. I only left Northern Virginia to go to William & Mary for 4 years and came back here for a job. I now have 2 grown daughters. I have a 16-year-old. That is not grown, let me tell you. I have a 26-year-old. She's married. She's a Black Hawk pilot in the United States Army, and she's currently deployed. I have a daughter who's 22, a recent graduate of Elon. She was valedictorian, and she is a published researcher at age 22. I'm supposed to say she has her name first on that research. That is important. She has a job with IBM. I have a 16-year-old who is currently at Oakton in trailers because they're under renovation. This daughter of mine will not see completed school. She will be in trailers all 4 years of her academic career at Oakton High School. So I have lived here my entire life. I went through these schools. I'm a former teacher. I'm now a tutor. I've been a PTA president. I've been a room mom. I'm a 20-plus year volunteer with Fairfax County Public Schools. Currently the treasurer of the Oakton High School girls basketball program. I've seen a lot, and I don't like what I've seen. The biggest thing, I guess, that I'm running on is that I've attended school board meetings for over 20 years. Yes, there are people like me who enjoy doing that. I've studied international, federal, state, and local education law for 30 years. Yes, there are people who enjoy that. So why am I running? I'm running because a lot of parents don't know how to help their kids in elementary school, junior high, and high school. If you look around, you see a plethora of tutoring centers. If you go into Starbucks, if you go into a library, what do you see? Tutors. I'm a tutor. $60 to $100 an hour. Unbelievable in Fairfax County. If I were running this county, I'd be ashamed. Why do we have parents telling me, my kids are unhappy, they have no books, they have no online books. I fought online books. I don't necessarily dislike online books, but they were rolled out at a time when our computer systems couldn't tolerate them. Many kids didn't have Wi-Fi. They shut down. Let me tell you, I had a full-time 4-year varsity runner, And she could never access her books, couldn't access her books, her lessons on travel. This board makes radical decisions, and they march to the tune of special interests. People get on this board and they misuse the board to launch a political career. People get on this board and they're owned and operated by special interests. And that's the tune they march to. All you have to do is follow the money. There's a lot of money. Look at our schools. We're how far behind in building renovations. So I can tell you story after story. I've lived it, I've seen it, I teach it. I'm a mom. There's a stark difference between me and my competitor. I beg you to look at both of us and make a good decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Buford, and I'm running for an at-large seat on the school board. My experience with Fairfax County Public Schools started nearly 20 years ago when my son was 6. And then I had a daughter who's 2 years younger who also went through the Fairfax County Public Schools. I was a very active parent volunteer from the get-go. My kids now have graduated, but my work is not finished. I love this county, and I have an extensive background in education and education policy, and I'm troubled by what I see on the school board, and so I felt like I have to step up. For 10 years, the first 10 years of my career, I was a teacher. I taught career technical education. I earned a master's in public policy and worked at the Department of Education on programs to help at-risk kids. For about 30 years, I have worked with nonprofit organizations, and they are the glue that hold our communities together, and we need to utilize them more in our schools. My focus has always been on results. It doesn't matter how much money you spend, it matters, are you transforming people's lives? And so I care about being data-driven and the results. So I am also the granddaughter of Eastern European immigrants who came here with nothing. So I know how education can transform a family's life. I am running because I want every child in Fairfax County to succeed. Now, my opponents seem to be very passionate also in wanting to change and have children succeed. My concern is that their policies and priorities won't get us where we need to go. And as the other candidates have mentioned, they are spending $12 billion, $3 billion each year over the next 4 years. And do we really want to continue experimenting with our kids? I will safeguard neighborhood schools. I will champion academic rigor across the board. Did you know that out of our graduates that go on to Northern Virginia Community College, 50% of them have to take remedial writing? That is a travesty. It just should not be. I'm looking forward to answering your questions. Again, my name is Cheryl Buford, and I ask for your vote on November 5th. Thank you.
My name is Vincent Xavier Parathingal. I'm also running for Fairfax County School Board for the at-large seat. You can already tell by now that I'm not from around here. Yeah, I moved from Maryland. I'm a long-term resident of Virginia. I moved from Maryland 21 years ago, but I still have a little bit of that accent. So please listen keenly. You know, when I'm talking about myself, I'm an engineer by profession. I have my bachelor's degree from India. I have my master's degree from University of Nevada, Reno, both in civil engineering. Moved to the East Coast to work for Maryland State Highway, worked for Metro Washington Council of Governments, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. Now I'm running a small business, an IT business doing federal work with my wife in Tyson's Corner. I have raised 2 kids through the system. I have 2 graduates who graduated from Fairfax County Public Schools, went to University of Virginia in their engineering program. My elder son is now working for Google. He's 26 years old. My younger one is 20 years old, 3rd year yesterday. So my wife was asking, why you want to do this? We were planning to do some travels and we were empty nesters and all of that. But then I told her, things are not really looking good. We didn't come here for not just one generation of success. Things are going not the way that we were thinking that America is supposed to be going. I come from a socialist country. So the way the school system trains our children, and that is very visible, in their actions, in the way things are going. The overall success is lacking. The personal integrity, the character formation, things are not happening in schools. So my 3 planks on my platform are academic rigor. That is the primary thing that the school system should focus on. Fiscal responsibility. I see the taxes are going through the roof for mediocre results. And parental rights. As an immigrant, I believe that we send children to school for their arithmetic, math, English, history, athletics. But when it comes to the values, when it comes to belief systems, the parents should have the primacy in teaching them what they should be believing in. So if the school system is coming into changing the way that we want our children to believe or have their lives, that is not the right thing. So we want more parental rights, parental involvement in the school system. So I'm running on these 3 planks. I have a very detailed website. All of these ideas that I have just mentioned is very clearly mentioned in my website. So please visit my website, vinsonforschoolboard.com. Thank you very much.
And now we'll move on to the question and answer portion of our forum tonight. Again, the format that we're going to take is I have your written questions in front of me. We're hoping to clear through all of them. Each of the candidates will answer the questions in the order that they were just introduced, and they'll each have 2 minutes to answer the questions. So I'll start off with the first question that we have. What do you say to parents who moved into the Mantua specifically for the Frost-Woodson Pyramid? You're the first.
So I mentioned that I moved 2 miles away. Do you want me to stand? Is that better? Yeah. So I mentioned I moved 2 miles away with my husband when I moved out of my mother's house, and that was with intention. So I've only lived in these 2 homes my whole life. And when I got married, we had to wait 2 months to move in together because we were trying to find where we wanted to live. And it was different for us because even though I was only 25 years old, my son was already in school. He was already in, I think, 2nd grade at that point. So I had to be considerate of where I was going to send him. We could have afforded to move to Manassas. Prince William was something that we had considered. But the school system was everything to us. So we waited. Thank God we found a house that was a short sale. Over by the Target. I grew up by the Walmart, now I'm by the Target, so it was an upgrade. But it was a short sale home, and it needed a lot of work. And my husband is incredible. We did all the work ourselves. So in telling you all this, it's because I understand the importance of buying your home with the intention of sending your kids to that school. And so I'm here to tell you that I respect that so much, and I would never want to disrupt that at all, because I am in it with you. If every decision that's made by this board that impacts a parent, that's the perspective that I'm bringing. I would consider, do I want this for my own son? Every decision that's made will impact me too. And so that is why I keep saying I'm fighting to give parents a voice again, because it is so important to have that perspective, because every decision that is made, I will be impacted by it also. And so with the Woodson Pyramid, no, I would never want to disrupt your lives, because our job is to make sure that your community schools are working for you, not that you are doing the work for your community school. Thank you.
So I have 3 daughters, and each of them are different. And we looked at colleges differently. We could have looked at the same college, looked at it differently. We treat our children as individuals. We, as parents, make different decisions. We all like different styles of houses. We all want different types of neighborhoods. We all look at schools for different priorities. Some may have children who have special needs. Some may have children who are excelled learners. We make choices, but that's why we like America. Let's be quite honest. I don't care where you buy a home, and I don't care why you bought the home, but that was your decision to make. You should not have an authoritative board changing that. You elect board members to represent your values and your voice on the school board. Do you have that now? No. You haven't had that for decades. They want your money, they get your vote, and you hear nothing. You hear crickets. So this is unacceptable to me. This is America. These are our schools. We fund them. 53% of your personal property taxes, right to the schools. Sales tax, right to the schools. State taxes, your money, only 17 cents to the dollar comes back to Fairfax County. They need to listen to our voices. So parents need to be integral. They are integral to the education process. So you need to know what your child's learning, what websites they're going to, what books they're reading. You're their authority. I'm my child's authority. You need to elect a board that listens to you, represents the community, represents the taxpayer. 75% of taxpayers don't have kids in our school. Add in homeschool, private school, religious schools, you're up to 78%. Only 22% use our schools. We fund them. They're our schools. This is our board. We should operate for you. Thank you.
If you bought your home to go to Mantua and Frost, then we need to do everything in our power to make sure that you can stay in the schools that you bought your home for. I will not treat your decision like Pat Hines did when she was quoted as saying, we're not going to cover the real estate bets of Fairfax County homeowners. We have community-based schools. You made decisions based on the situation as it was at the time you made your purchase. We need to do everything in our power to make sure that there's consistency. Sometimes you may choose to pupil place your son or daughter in another school for advanced academic, if going to a level 4 center, or there are a handful of magnet programs, maybe an academy program, but that should be your choice and not the choice of the school board. So, thank you.
Just like Priscilla was saying, when I moved to Virginia in 1998 from Maryland, it was exactly for the same reason, the schools. So I was a new immigrant. I didn't have enough money to buy the best home where the best schools are, so I bought a home in the Lemon Road district, planning 3 years, 4 years into the future, thinking that if they get into the GT program, they can go to Haycock. It was all planned, and that's the way it happened. They went to Haycock Elementary School. So people make these decisions to buy homes. It's the biggest decision that they make in their lives. And most of the time, that's only home that they buy. So all of a sudden, the school board, an authoritarian school board, coming and telling you that we had nothing to say, but we decide where your children are going to go to school. You bought a home in that community. That doesn't mean that you're going to be in that school forever. It doesn't make any sense to me. The community schools that we have in Fairfax County is the best thing that we have in this county. It is the best thing. And we don't want to do anything to compromise that. So the same thing applies to everywhere, all the schools. So if somebody moved into this school district, they have to have that freedom to send their children to that school. And school board has no authority to come and tell the parents otherwise. That's my belief. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And that brings us to the first of our pre-formatted questions. According to the current adopted FCPS Capital Improvement Program, Woodson High School and Mantua Elementary are both projected to be over capacity by or before the 2023-24 school year. One identified solution for these schools are capital improvements, but neither school is listed for any throughout 2027. Other identified solutions are boundary adjustment, reassigning instructional spaces, and program changes. So we have a three-part question. Will you support funding to provide Woodson and Mantua with capital improvements to address this capacity deficit? If capital improvements cannot be obtained, will you support reassigning instructional spaces and program changes over boundary adjustments? And what other solutions do you propose or support for this rapidly approaching issue which is facing our community? Why don't we start at this end, we can go that way this time.
As far as I am concerned, when I am running for school board, I believe that it is not just attending those meetings and sitting there in the Taj Mahal, what we call in Fairfax, and then looking down on people and listen to their complaints and not even paying any attention for whatever the parents want. I heard in one of the debates in Great Falls, one of the candidates saying that if there is a McLean overcrowding problem, it is a problem with the McLean parents. It's one of our opponents said, my opponent said that. Now here, you are planning way in advance, the parents of this particular school, and if they're not listening at this point, it's not parents' problem, it's the school board's problem. So I will be a leader in being the link between the community, between the school board, and making sure that the parents' voices are heard on time, and all these needs that are coming in the future are addressed way in advance. So you don't kind of postpone this decision making until it is a crunch situation and then finally you have nothing else other than boundary adjustments. That's not the way I'm going to be operating. And I know it's not a big paid job or whatever, but this is a social role, a political role that you're getting into. So you should be ready to take the challenges and being responsible to provide the leadership, to provide the oversight, to make sure that parents' views are represented, and make sure that parents' views and their issues are forecasted from early on so that there is no surprises. And that's what I am promising as a school board member. I will be your voice, I will be your representative, and I will provide the necessary oversight. I will not be just a thank you school board, thank you superintendent person. I will ask what's going on and way in advance so that these kind of issues will not come towards the last minute. Thank you.
Well, it's very heartening to hear that you guys are looking this far ahead. So I commend you for doing that. I will say that one of the choices that you gave wasn't to improve the capital improvement plan itself, which, as I've looked at it, it needs a complete overhaul. So the school board operates on a 5-year time frame. The Board of Supervisors operates on a 25-year time frame, and they don't talk to each other. So, and there are huge problems with their forecasting. So, for example, I live in the northern edge of Vienna, and our neighborhood went through a boundary adjustment. For us, it was a positive change because my time's running out, so I'll cut this story short. Anyway, at that time, Langley High School was way overcrowded, and McLean was under capacity. So in the shuffle for schools, we were assigned to McLean High School. Now, McLean is bursting at the seams. Langley had a renovation, and it's under capacity. So our school district is notorious for making huge forecasting errors. So we need to, for starters, improve the capital improvement program and work with the Board of Supervisors so that you have accurate information.
So there's a lot to this question. In Providence, you have several schools that are way over capacity and have been way over capacity for decades. You've got Pine Spring at 126% elementary, projected to go to 139%. You've got Shrevewood way over capacity, but you've got schools under capacity. And then the neighborhood I grew up in, which is sandwiched between Marshall High School and Falls Church High School. I went to Falls Church High School. Well, now they bus this community for socioeconomic reasons way past Marshall, all the way to McLean. Now, McLean's the one with the major overcapacity problem, but so is Oakton. Oakton's going to be over capacity when it's finished. The school at the end of my road, which is Oakton Elementary, was just redone not even a decade ago. It has 4 trailers. I can't even get up and down my road every day because they put the kiss and ride lane on my road. It's not even a 2-lane road that's big enough to have a line down the middle. You get 40 cars there lined up in the morning, 40 cars lined up there in the afternoon. No one can get by. So we have a backlog, and it's like a 50-year backlog. That's why you're going to see an ask, not for 180 million this year. You typically see 150 million. That's been raised to 180 million to keep our AAA bond rating. You're going to see an ask for 360 million. That's because we have a 50-year, over $1 million backlog. So we need to be cooperating with the Board of Supervisors. Vincent said it. Look at, if we put the people who run our schools in trailers, we'd get a lot of solutions. So we're not even talking about modulars. Modulars are included in capacity. So we need to have better solutions. We need to figure out, I get that you're concerned about this problem of overcrowding, but in this district, you've had a board that's only focused on, without any community input, without even any community knowledge, putting a new school at Blake Lane Park. No information. Why? The person who represents you on the school board now has been checked out. She's been running for office. She used this school board to launch a political career. She's now running for the Board of Supervisors. So if you're going to utilize your time on the board and never communicate with the community, now mind you, you get on the board, you have no children.
And I don't mean to be rude, but we
There
are
you
out
go.
of time.
So reading this question, my heart honestly aches for this community and so many communities across Fairfax County, because you are not alone to this problem. I mean, Fairfax County is bursting at the seams and has been, and I would like to give you just a little brief history on the school board. So the school board used to be appointed members before. Years ago, when they started becoming elected officials back in the 90s, over 20 years ago. Since that point, we have had a majority of Democrat-endorsed candidates on this school board. And not just a majority, a supermajority. For example, right now, there are 10 Democrat-endorsed candidates on the school board of a 12-seat board. And so the reason I emphasize that, because it shouldn't be about politics. My biggest point is that it should be education first, right? But when you have candidates running for school board where it says Democrat for school board, Democrats for school board, because that's all they want you to know is that they're Democrats. They are proud to carry this name that has taken this school board and made it incredibly partisan. Because this, what you guys just did, you just did the school board's job. They're not talking about this right now. You know what they're talking about right now? They're talking about giving kids a day off to go protest. For whatever they want in school. That's what they're talking about. They're talking about providing menstrual products and bathrooms because the clinic is too far of a walk. A walk, by the way, that I did take when I went to Fairfax County Public Schools, and there was nothing wrong with that walk. But they're painting it as a terrible, long, as if you're a miles-long walk to the clinic. Anyway, I'm sorry, I could go on and on, but because this school board is talking about the wrong thing. This is what the school board should be focused on, and I pledge to you as a school board member, I will be focused on the things that are actually directly affecting our students' achievement, and that includes where and how they learn. And we need to get rid of trailers, and they will tell you that that's what they're focused on, but enough is enough. They have had over 20 years to fix the problems, and all the problems that we have in Fairfax County have ballooned under their leadership. I, for one, am done. Thank you.
And we'll shift gears just a little bit now. Fairfax does not offer sports at the middle school level. Given the many benefits of school-based sports teams, team building among students, lower costs for parents, fewer hours wasted in traffic, less emissions, and combating the obesity epidemic, would you support middle school sports teams, and what might we be able to fund this?
Yes. So, is this on? I think
We can still hear
yes, I've never been told I'm too quiet. Okay.
you.
Okay, thank you. So yes, I would absolutely support this. I would love to take a holistic approach to children learning, and I think it's so important for kids of all ages to have activities outside of school just to make a well-rounded individual. So I would totally support extracurricular activities in the middle school level. One way to fund this, right now the school board is talking about school name changes. So I am not defending Confederate soldiers' names, okay? I'm not trying to honor these people, but what I do understand is that there is a limited amount of resources in Fairfax County. Even though they spend $3 billion a year, there's not enough money to spend on everything. That's why middle schoolers don't have these activities right now. So it cost over $500,000 to change the name of Jeb Stuart, and that was one school. They have a list of over 30 that have Confederacy ties that are on the table because they just changed the renaming school policy. And so that is where you can keep money, because that is, if you had $500,000 presented to a school and you said we could either change the letters on the building or we could provide extracurricular activities for your kids, which would you choose? Because I can tell you right now, I care so much more about my child being a well-rounded child in Fairfax County over the name that bears on the building that he doesn't even care about. So that is where I stand on that. I fully support it.
So again, you're talking about a space issue and a busing issue. But yes, our kids definitely we need to be innovative. And this board is not ever innovative. The one thing they were innovative about this year I don't agree with, and that was placing tutoring facilities in elementary schools. For-profit tutoring facilities in elementary school. Isn't it the job after 7 hours, 7.5 hours a day for your child to come out of a school and not need tutoring? So yes, I would support, but I already see, there's difficulty already at the high school level. So I think we need to partner with our community. We see like Vienna Youth Soccer or CYA. They're funding turf fields in exchange for use. So I think, yes, we do need to look at partnering with our sports communities, because I can guarantee that there are a lot of sports that would like to start earlier than when the parents get off. And again, it's a busing issue. So innovation is one of the key things that I'd like to bring to this board. When your kids are sick, do you want them in school? Do they want your kids in school? No. We have technology, but we're not utilizing it wisely. When kids are disruptive and need to be removed from the classroom, why do we not have a space for them to have a video into the classroom? So again, there's so many things that we need to be more innovative about. Online classes, access to academy, and if you're going to, like Priscilla said and others said, only be concerned about menstrual equity, and I'm going to touch on that in a minute. I've raised 3 daughters. I went to these schools. There used to be dispensers in the bathrooms. Why are they not there? They were ripped out of the wall. They were set on fire. Products were taken. Is that not going to happen now? No, it's going to happen.
I think it would be great if they had sports and other after-school programs in middle school. I remember starting back to work when my daughter started 7th grade, and because the middle school schedule is early, it's an early start time and early dismissal time, there was a gap of a couple of hours at least before I could get home, and my daughter would go home on the bus by herself and be home alone. So I hated that. So I think it would help students, it would help working parents to have activities at the school, in the middle school, and like my other candidate friends, colleagues have said, there are plenty of places in this budget that we can find to trim. And we certainly can be innovative and partner with community groups, but one of the programs that has just started this year is the FCPS On, the one-to-one technology program that funds computers for every middle and high school student in the county. And that's at a cost over 5 years of $76 million. It is costing parents a fee of $50 per student to cover repairs. And so, you know, that would be a place that I would start cutting. Why is it that we are giving families that can't afford to give their children a computer? Why are we giving those families a computer? And for families that can't afford a computer, I would want to give it to the parents, not to the child, so that the parents can set the privacy settings and not be shut out of their children's education.
Yep. It's very well proven, scientifically proven, that sports really helps for well-rounded development as well as leadership development. So, and there is one other big use for having more outside time for children is to keep them away from screens. So what have our school board has done? Again, increasing their screen time, giving them more computer to take home so that they can be hooked on into Google's networks and, you know, sacrificing all the privacy that the children need. So I am all supportive of that, and we already heard the word innovation. That is where we need to really think as a community. We have 25 major corporations in the country, headquartered in Fairfax County. 25 major multinational corporations. I have already proposed for the McLean-Langley as a solution that why don't we come up with a Tyson's expansion related fund where these private corporations contribute to a fund to build Tyson's related infrastructure needs in that area. $25 million each from 20 companies, or $20 million from 25 companies, $500 million. These are peanuts for these companies, Google's, Microsoft's, Amazon's. So why don't we think innovatively instead of just coming to the people for all the money all the time? So the sports is very important. We have a lot of savings we already heard, right, from my friends here, where we can trim the budget. But in addition to that, I would suggest that we need to involve the big corporations in our area, in our public school system, because they benefit with the growth, they benefit with everything that is happening. So they have a stake in the game. It has to have a stake in the game. So definitely I would encourage that level of innovation and reaching out to the corporates. Thank you.
Textbooks are a valuable resource for both students and parents. However, Fairfax seems to have moved away from textbooks towards handouts and online material. Given concerns about screen time, do you support bringing textbooks back into the academic curriculum?
Absolutely. I am all supportive of just going back to the old policy of textbooks. Because I told you I had two kids who were 6 years apart. And I noticed the difference. When my elder son was in school, it was all textbooks. We don't have to really supervise. We set the rules. He put all his textbooks and all his papers on the kitchen table, and he does his homework right there. So we know when his homework is done, we can track it. It was all going very well. When my younger son was in the 10th grade, that's when these textbooks are gone. And we are both IT professionals, working in computer all the time. And we started fighting. Now it's whose responsibility is that to get online. There is a father account, there is a mother account, so it's whose responsibility to get online. And it became a mess. And the kid will say that, oh, there is no homework or whatever. So it is absolutely necessary for the parents to have oversight. And more than that, they change things. When it is online, when it is all online, as you see, the references, they put to Al Jazeera as a reference, as a textbook, instead of textbook. And then there is a complaint about that material, then the next day it's gone. But if you have a textbook, you know what they are going to be learning. So it definitely helps the parents to know what exactly they are getting. But when there is no textbooks, these things change on the fly. So absolutely, we need to bring the textbooks back. There are many instances of other countries doing it. Australia, there was a study from Australia recently. They said that, they found this no textbook a big failure, so they're bringing the textbooks back. And we can do that. Only if you get out in big numbers on November 5th and vote for us. Thank you.
Yes, we need textbooks. Yes, we need to minimize screen time for our students. We were slower to adopt this one-to-one technology that should have given the school board time to look at what's happening around the country, but it didn't. And Baltimore County has now 5-year experience with going digital, and what do we see? No change in academic achievement. There have been parents in Austin, Texas, in a city in Indiana that escapes my memory, and in Boston, Massachusetts, where parents are going to school board meetings and saying, there's too much digital, go back to the tried and true, the textbooks. So this isn't just our experience, this is the experience around the country. There is research that says, and our school board right now wants to go lower and lower and lower, so even early elementary school will be using laptop computers. Right now they have tablets. There is research that children learn to read better with a physical book, not online. So for all of these reasons, we need to use and rely primarily on textbooks. And of course, the world opens up with computers. I'm not a Luddite, but we need to make sure that we are using them judiciously, that it's supervised screen time, and that it has an educational purpose.
So all of the tech giants that create all these programs that we clamor for and buy, they send their kids to schools that are technology free. They hire nannies to keep their kids off of screen time. They very rarely allow their children screen time. Why? They know what damage it does. There are multiple studies coming out now showing how disastrous this is, but I will tell you from experience, my oldest, who's the Black Hawk pilot, was severely ADHD. Severely. That's why I homeschooled her for 3 years. I knew if I let her in school, she would disrupt. She was highly intelligent. She talked at 8 months, spoke in sentences at 1, oldest in her class. But she had a focus issue, and I knew how to fix it. And today when I tutor, I mostly tutor kids who have ADHD problems, and this is what's affecting them the most. They are not organized. They can't be organized. They don't have a tangible book. They don't have a tangible notepad. I get call after call after call to the point that I can't handle it. But the parents say, I don't need your help to teach this and this and this. I just need my kid to be organized. You can't be organized if you have nothing tangible. Parents can't help their kids if you have nothing tangible. We don't know where our kids are being sent to. I can tell you stories about kids who ended up on the wrong websites and parents call. We need to be providing our kids with tangible, workable objects. I tutor, I have books, I have saved textbooks. My kids go to the textbooks all the time to look things up. Kids need something visual, math in particular. Today, we don't even teach our kids how to write. Math is difficult because they can't formulate numbers the same size, can't make columns. Let's just forget handwriting. So we are also tearing apart. We're not formulating that part of the brain. That part of the brain is so integral. Even cursive. Cursive is a whole art form. It wakes up a whole part of the brain. We have these scientific studies. We've been doing things right for a long time. Let's not screw it up. So let's look at the science. Again, today my big passion is what's going on in our schools of education. Now, that's not tonight's topic. Give you great articles, but that's where it's coming from. There's a lot of junk science. It's that same junk science that's infiltrated our county to demand borders.
And with that, I'm afraid we have to move on.
So this is one of the reasons why I decided to run, was because every year that my son has been in school, and he's only in 6th grade, but I have felt further and further removed from his curriculum. It is so hard to work a full day of work and then come home, want to assist my son on his homework, on his education, and not know how he learned it because he comes home with a worksheet. And I'm flipping it over, trying to figure out, because a lot of the time I need to reteach myself so that I can teach him the proper methods. But I can't because there's no book to flip through. When everything is moving online, it is so hard to scroll through a book when you're scrolling through pages on a computer screen. More screen time has equated to higher rates of depression, disturbed sleep. I mean, access to things that kids should not have access to. My son doesn't have a cell phone because that is what I want. I don't want him to have access to the internet at all times. But this school board has intentions to get kids as young as 3rd grade laptops to take to and from home that only they can log into, not you. Where were the parents? Were you asked at all if you want your children to be learning on these laptops? No, this was a school board that took power into their own hands and decided that they knew what was best. And was it based on any data? No, because when they asked, where's the data of the other school systems that have already implemented one-to-one technology? How well has their performance improved? Oh, we don't have that. Really? That's something that should have been in their hands before making a decision like this. But no, the decision has already been made. You are not brought to the table until afterwards. And again, I have had enough. Because if I'm having issues with accessing my son's curriculum, imagine someone who has just come to this country and want to help their children. If I can't figure it out on the computer, how are they? The school board has further removed children from parents from their children's academics, and enough is enough. Thank you.
And that brings us to the second of our pre-formatted questions. The FCPS School Board has revised Policy 8130, the policy that governs boundary changes. The revisions have removed consideration of proximity to schools, the impact of neighborhoods, and the overall impact on families and students. The revision added the socioeconomic and/or racial composition of students in effective schools. So the question is, what are your thoughts on this current policy and the potential impact it could have on current school boundaries?
Ooh, where do I begin? Okay, so the boundary changes that are coming, the boundary policy being changed, is all due to one Fairfax. A policy that I will tell you right now, I do not agree with, because the whole premise of the policy was based on the fact that there are racial and socioeconomic inequities in Fairfax County, which, as a Hispanic woman who has grown up here, I do not believe to be the case. Are there schools that are underperforming that need help? Yes, but whose fault is that? This school board that has had control of these schools for over 20 years and have done nothing to solve the problems. Instead, they want to disrupt your lives, change your boundaries, send your kids to different schools to mask a problem that they created in the first place. This school board has gone off the rails and has grown, and they have somehow convinced people that they need more power, more control over your lives in order to fix the problems that they have created. And so, no, I do not stand for this policy, especially when they say that they want to teach every child, regardless of their background, what zip code they came from, what gender they are. They say those things, but they are lying to you because they want to target your child based on their race and based on how much money you make, because that is what is in the new policy, and they all stand behind it because none of them have spoken out against one Fairfax. And so that is what you're getting, people who are continuing to lie to you, saying that they're going to solve the problems that they created in the first place. And again, I can't say this, but enough is enough.
So all we need to do is look at what happened in Loudoun County. Loudoun County adopted this plan, and they had schools that were heavily majority low-income, non-English speaking. And what they were able to do at these schools is target, infiltrate those schools with the programs and the things that the kids needed. But when they dispersed the kids, you had parents who couldn't attend programs because they may not have a car. You have kids who got sick at school who couldn't get home. And you didn't have the resources. And there's the data. There's the data, but if it doesn't fit the agenda, they ignore the data. But we've got data from county after county that has done this, and what happens? The scores go down. Education doesn't happen by osmosis. We have spent $300 million over the last 2 decades on closing the minority student achievement gap. What we've also done is stripped out critical curriculum content. No grammar, dumbed down spelling, no vocabulary, not phonics-based teaching. We've dumbed down math, group teaching, handouts. And at what point are our kids supposed to learn? So when you have state boards of education that quietly lower the number that you have to get right on SOLs, and then the counties clap when there's a slight increase, you need people on the board who follow this stuff, who understand this stuff, who don't want to tolerate this stuff. You're paying for a quality education. You shouldn't have to follow this. You should be electing people who know what the problems are, can identify them, can fix them, and not tolerate the special interests coming in and demanding that they profit and not your kids profit off of your tax dollars.
Thank you.
So I want to start with a story. As an at-large candidate, I have been all over this county. So about a week and a half ago, I was down in Gum Springs Community Center, which is an largely African-American area. And a woman stopped by, she picked up my palm card. If you pick up one of my palm cards, you'll see that one of the first bullets of what the positions that I take is safeguarding neighborhood schools. The woman that was reading my palm cards works as a community service person with neighborhood folks at this Gum Springs Community Center. And she said, "Oh, that's very important." And I said, "Why do you say that?" And she said, "Because the families that I serve have transportation issues, and if schools are too far away, it's too difficult for the parents to get to the schools, they cannot be involved in their children's education." So, unfortunately, with to answer your question, I think the revised policy is a disaster. The current policy actually hits the right notes in terms of the various factors that should be considered when making a decision. But unfortunately, our opponents, when they own up to their policy at all, they call us racist or elitist for having concerns. And I can tell you that it is not in the interest of our low-income neighbors to have this kind of policy. Oh, thank you.
So if you just look at the question itself, it's actually true. I have verified that. The proximity to schools, impact of neighborhoods, overall impact on families and students, removed. The tangible things that anybody can measure, it's removed. and bringing in socioeconomics. So the people who are doing this, the school board members, they know what they're doing is terribly wrong. But they are asked to do that by the global special interests and political interests that they have to cater to become the candidates even. So this is just common sense. There is nothing to this other than politics. You know, removing all the real valid criteria and bringing in things that you cannot really measure. I want to say this. When my second son was filling his college application, he applied to a couple of Ivy Leagues too, not just UVA. And when he was applying, I told him this racial thing, you know, just say that unknown or don't know or something. He said, no, everybody knows that we are Asian American. I said, how do they know? You have a name, Stephen, and your dad is Xavier. You can be Hispanic, you can be from Africa, whatever. He said, no, but they put truthfully, Asian American. I was always a very proud Asian American, Indian American person. But I started thinking how to cheat the system now. I mean, how people can figure out I'm Asian American. If I say African American, how can they figure out I look just like from Ethiopia? So this is really corrupting people's mindsets. I'm telling you. There are 100% factors that really valid for all these success stories. Whether it is white, Asian, black, Hispanic or whatever, kids who are doing really well, they have the best practices and they have the opportunities that are common to all these sections of the society. Why don't we focus on those things, the opportunities? If there is a gap in the opportunity, fix that. How can you call out these things just by the name of your race or the zip codes? It is absurd. And even the school board members who advocate for this, they know that. But they're doing it for their politics. And that is where this has to stop.
Ending is taking place.
You know, they have a budget and an audit system that is not at all transparent. So to have answers to your question, we need to have a better accounting and auditory practices. You know, our chief auditor reports to the superintendent. There is no independent audit in Fairfax County. We wanted to find out exactly how much money they spend on this school system, school name change. There is no answer. Has anybody heard anything? They hide it in different areas of the budget so that nobody can really see it. So, I mean, when you get close to this, I was not even thinking that this kind of nonsense that's going on. I wanted to make up the academic rigor situation better. But once I get involved, I started seeing problems all over the place. 70% of our contracts go unsold, sole sourced, no competition. So we want more transparency. Then we can figure out where exactly the waste is. I know for certain that the school name change is a waste. And I know it's not just $100, $200. It's maybe close to $1.5 million. I know that. So if they're going to change 4 school names this year and 31 on the table, think about it. So that is their practice. And if, just to give you an increase in the budget, from 2000 to 2018, the budget increased 125%. You may be thinking the number of students increased that much. No, the number of students increased only 25%. The intake increased only 25%. Inflation adjusted increase of the budget could have been 45%. But it really increased 125%. So it's not like, the budget is increasing way more than the student numbers are increasing. So there is definitely waste. And one right in front of my eyes is school name changes. I don't want any more school name changes. I want better middle school sports teams.
Well, adding to what Vincent just said, we have a lot of support staff that are actually staff members rather than contract employees or contracting with a service. So I don't know that anyone has ever done a cost-benefit analysis. What if we hired a cleaning service rather than the custodians being employees? I don't know that would save money, but is anyone even considering cost-benefit analysis in making these non-educational decisions? I think that certainly would be a place to start. we also should be using zero-based budgeting rather than just, well, your budget is at X level, and so we're going to add 2, 3, 4% to it. We need to have zero-based budgeting, which would be another help. And the sole source contracting is also a problem. And as we've discussed in previous responses, it's a matter of priorities too. So how are we prioritizing our spending? And certainly, you know, you've heard our concerns with some of the priorities, the excess use of technology and the name changes are just a couple of examples. Thank you.
So one thing we spend a lot of money on is teacher training. Big school districts like Fairfax County have a lot of draw, and they have a lot of power. And we need to be demanding that when our teachers, new teachers come out, that they actually know what they're teaching. And so you can get teachers today that really have never taken a math class. I mean, you have to look at the numbers. So when teachers come out, they have to take a state test to be licensed. And you can, that pass rate is 48%. Now, compare that to somebody getting a legal or accounting or going to medical school. That's not a good number. So when you also look at minorities who take those same tests, you get a 36% pass rate. So we need to be demanding that the schools of education produce what they say that they're producing so that we don't have to then waste tax dollars on training. Today we spend a lot of time on hiring, this board spends a lot of time on hiring outside groups to run all of these studies, and those studies, they run them until they agree with what their agenda is. And so we also push off what the role of the school board should be to committees that we have to pay. Mental health is another big issue. We're going to be spending a lot on mental health. So after the Parkland shooting, we did these studies. We wanted safer schools. We have no bulletproof glass. We have no new things for door locks. We spend it on mental health. We're paying right now for a child-centered utopia. We've gone down a little bit of a different path. We need to be focusing the money back to the programs, back to academics, and not on name changes.
So yes, the name changes is just one example of where money could be applied literally anywhere else. For example, my son, I told you he has a communication delay, so he's not speaking yet. So he's babbling and doing all these things. But I'm at the table at the IEP meeting asking and asking and asking for a speech pathologist and trying to get it written into the IEP so that he can be seen by someone who is a specialist in that field. And I do not have that yet. My son has not been seen yet by the speech pathologist, and it just tells me that there are not enough of these trained therapists in our schools, and why? So when you're spending money, this is why it infuriates me when you're spending over $500,000 to literally change the letters on a building, when that could, in my mind, pay for therapists, occupational therapists, speech pathologists, things that we really need. Another example with the menstrual equity, you know, they just paid $200,000 for a pilot program, okay? It doesn't end there. This is the start. They have never walked backwards. They never spent less of your money. They only spend more. So this is just the beginning, and it was only for about 30 schools, so when you do the math, it's gonna be over $1 million when they roll it county-wide. And then, that's not the end of it, because guess what? These resources deplete. Every month, you're gonna need more and more, especially when kids start taking home all these products to their sisters and their moms and everyone else that they can because they're free and accessible in the bathrooms. So when you start talking on the larger scale, that's a lot of money. I would be totally behind a school doing community outreach, or the community there, raising these products for people who might need them, which is what they did do at Justice High School. They did that already. That I would support, because if the community wants to get behind it, okay. But when it comes to finite resources such as your tax dollars, we could be spending it on so many other things that would directly benefit your children, my children, in our schools. Thank you. Yes.
You need to go?
I was going to leave it, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so why don't we take a 5-minute break?
Sure.
Sound
Is
good?
that okay?
Okay.
Can I do my closing since everyone?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. So I hope that you guys all got a sense of who I am. I mean, I love this county so much that I've never left it, and I don't want to lose my county. I want this county to be great for everyone that lives here, that will come here, that is, that wants to live here. I'm a rare kind, the fact that I grew up here and have stayed, because it is so expensive to live in Fairfax County, and our schools are great, and we need to keep them that way. And we need to keep the school board, get the school board on the right track to focus on what's going to directly affect our children, your children. One thing about me that you need to know, actually 2 things. I work very hard. I've worked since I was 15 years old. I started off at Domino's. Now I'm a career professional. But I've been working ever since, even through having my son, because I had to. Now, with having my son, I've fought literally for everything that I have. And if I'm elected to the school board, I will fight for you, because that is what we need. We need someone on this school board who is going to represent you, that comes from our communities, that has children in the school system, that has your best interests at heart, but that is going to bring you to the table and listen to you. Truly listen. Not make the decision beforehand and then tell you what's going to happen. We need to bring you in first, make sure we have the okay, and have data-driven decisions. Because that is what the school board job, that's what their job is. They need to make the decisions for our schools. It's not their schools, okay? They shouldn't be pushing things down on us. It should be bottoms up. We are the ones who own these schools. It is your tax dollars, and so you deserve a voice at the table, and I will be that voice for you, and I will fight for you, because that is what we deserve. And so I please hope that you have the chance to vote for all 4 of us sitting here. I know it wasn't supposed to be just the 4 of us, but we're all here because we want to work as a team for you. We've already worked together, and we have so many ideas, so many perspectives and experiences to bring, and you can vote for all 4 of us on November 5th, and I hope that you do. Thank you so much.
And with that, we'll take a 5-minute recess.
I'm sorry I have to leave early.
To recap, what the last question was, what, in your opinion, are the areas of Fairfax schools where the most amount of wasteful spending is taking place? So, after the answers for that, we're going to segue into a different question. How is equality defined, and how will it be measured to determine success after the boundary change?
Can you repeat that?
Sure. How is equality defined, and how will it be measured to determine success after the boundary change?
Okay, so that's assuming that we're going to adopt the 8130 boundary change?
I would assume so.
Okay. Well, first of all, I really hope you get a new board before that happens. I will say, it really disturbed me sitting, I have gone to school board meetings for 20 years, and when I say school board meetings, I mean all-day work sessions, committee meetings, family life education curriculum advisory committee meetings. One thing I think we need to do is televise the work sessions. But equality comes because they're all children. They're all here. They all need educated. This board says we have pockets of excellence that need to be torn apart. Now, in my mind, that's completely backwards. If something's working in a school district, in a classroom, I want to replicate it over and over. And I need to see why maybe this group of students isn't achieving like this group of students. So we don't want to tear apart pockets of excellence. All of our schools need to be excellent. But you've got different communities, you've got different programs. If in someone's mind, if you have the same racial and socioeconomic demographics, and that's how you define equity, to me that's not American. Once you're here, you're an American. Once you're in school, you're equally deserving of a rigorous education. And I love this quote by Wilford Grant, who is the head of our Minority Student Achievement Gap Achievement Oversight Committee. He's black, and he said, "You cannot keep them down with kindness. That all students deserve rigor, and if they have to work hard to get there, have them work hard." So that's the problem. Are we really helping our kids when we define them and put them into categories?
Thank you.
Well, thank you for this question, because the school board hasn't defined equity. They keep talking about the One Fairfax lens, the equity lens, but it is a very ambiguous term, and it sounds well-intentioned in terms of wanting every child to succeed. We all want every child to succeed, but again, the means for that to happen is ill-defined. If you read there is an expose that was written recently that this One Fairfax policy isn't unique to Fairfax, that there's a One Albuquerque, there are kind of one name the city all over the country, and to tell you the truth, where there has been research done, where there's been enough time for any of these policies to work their way through the system, like in Seattle, the achievement gap has increased. So we don't know what equity, to answer your question directly, we don't know what equity would look like in terms of boundary changes. We do know that in Montgomery County, and especially Howard County, where they're trying to equalize the ratios of racial and socioeconomic levels, there are huge fights going on. Everyone is very unhappy, and so is that the future of Fairfax County? The policy that they are discarding, and you read a number of the criteria, they have removed instructional effectiveness, impact on neighborhoods, which you mentioned, matching resources to needs, improving operating efficiencies. Those are the criteria that are in the current policy that have been removed. If the new policy is adopted, we are taking a step backwards.
So when we talk about equality, in my concept, you can say that a society is equitable if we have equal opportunity. You know, the current school board, they keep on talking about having equal outcome without ensuring that equal opportunity is available. So if you look at the Asian American numbers, I mean, that's what everybody talks about, being successful. And they are successful, or they are doing well in schools, not because of FCPS, but in spite of FCPS. They send their children to all these enrichment programs. They push their children so much, Saturdays and Sundays, and they get into even situations where they are too overloaded sometimes. And these kids produce the results, and all of a sudden, the school board says that it is their credit, and then they even have the audacity to go and say that these Asian children don't have any life. But they are basking in the glory of those numbers. That's why the numbers that we have right now. So we have to make sure that there is equality in opportunity. we cannot guarantee the outcome. So whatever that is happening with kids who are doing really well, we have to look at what opportunities they have, and we have to replicate those opportunities. And how it's going to look like after, if they get to employ their policy, which I don't think it will happen, because you guys are smart enough to reject that on November 5th. But if at all, if they were able to do that, it will be distribution of success. That is what is going to happen. Kids produce good school numbers, not the other way around. Harvard and Yale and all those Ivy League schools, they are doing really well because the best kids go there, who are the most trained or most advanced coaching they have. The same way, if you take kids from different schools and distribute, the school numbers will become average, but the kids who are doing well, they will keep on doing well. And the kids who don't have equal opportunity, they will still suffer. So I would like to end this with this Martin Luther King quote. I have a dream that my 4 children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. So this is what we are missing in current school system. We have to focus on children and their individual personalities and cater to them, not to their color. Thank you.
Thank you. What is your opinion on the youth survey FCPS gives to 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th graders? That is 84 questions for the 6th and 174 questions long for the others, and which asks some very inappropriate questions.
First of all, these surveys, even when adults are given these surveys, they sometimes it doesn't make any sense. Most of the time, there's a lot of, the questionnaire makers have a job to do. They will come up with questions to satisfy whoever is giving that, and they have no real interest in finding out what exactly is going on. So as far as I am concerned, the inappropriateness of the questions, I saw some of the questions, that is terrible. I don't want, small children to be thinking about things that they don't have to be thinking about at those ages. And this increases unnecessary curiosity, and that curiosity drives to experimentation, which are not necessary. When my son had that first lesson, the FLE lesson, I'm supposed to be discussing it with him when he comes home. I don't know which grade it was, 2nd or 3rd grade, but he was very young. So I asked him, okay, today I'm supposed to be discussing this with you. I'm the father, so share me, you had some new type of lessons today. He started crying. He said, oh, Papa, I don't want to discuss, it's so yucky. And he's 20 years old now. So I asked him today, how do you want me to express these feelings to the people? I'm meeting a lot of parents and teachers, and I'm running for school board. This is what he told me. You know what? It is always good to keep a child's innocence as much as possible. There is no point in taking out that innocence by asking them, unnecessary questions, age inappropriate questions. So that's what I would say. There are a lot of things I found on those questions were totally inappropriate for their age, and this has to stop. And you can stop it on November 5th.
Well, I think we really need to go back and review what questions the school needs to know. The school is an agent of the state, and so it is essentially a government agency. What do they need to know about your children? And so I think that we need to look at the questions that we ask students from the perspective of, is this an overreach by the school, by the government, into the private lives of our children and our families? So that's what I would do. I would make sure that whatever we ask our students has an educational purpose to it, and limit questions based on that rationale. And I would engage parents and get their input on what is it that we need to know about students and their personal lives.
So how much did you pay for your house? How much money do you make? When was the last time you had sex with your husband or wife? That's the kind of questions that would be the adult level of what we're asking our kids. I don't let my kids take this survey. I've looked at these surveys. Let's define some terms on the survey, because if you ask a kid, are you bullied? What's the definition of that? Have you been sexually abused? I mean, if there's no definition of terms, when was the last time you had oral sex? When was the last time you had anal sex? Are you kidding me? So it generalizes it. The kid sits there and says, oh, wait, maybe I'm the only one not having oral sex. Maybe I'm the only one not having anal sex. This is none of anyone's business. With my children, this is my business. In my marriage, this is my business. We are teaching our kids that this is the type of information that you want to be given out. That's a whole other area too, to go into what do they know about our families? What do they need to know about our families? What are they collecting on our families? This is intrusive. Every parent should be saying no to this. Also, there are kids who don't take it seriously, and you can hear them laughing about it. You should see what I answered on whatever, whatever, whatever. And then we base how much money. You want to talk about where we could save money? This survey. Total waste of time, total waste of the school day, total waste of paper, total waste of effort, total waste of whoever sits there and goes over these results, and then a bigger waste for what we use the data to do. I ended early that time.
Aside from pay increases, what do you think the school board can do to increase the job satisfaction among FCPS teachers?
So I talk to teachers all the time. Many of my friends are teachers. I was a teacher. Today, the biggest area is administrative overload and discipline. And I have a lot of teachers who tell me they really feel like they can't teach anymore because of what they have to condone, what they have to agree with, what they have to watch. And I really think it's high time that we understand that our staff, our students, our parents, every year, and you're going to get teacher after teacher after teacher, especially in the special ed programs. We don't have the supports. We are demanding a massive amount of data entry. And again, that goes back to what kind of data are they collecting and on our children. So teachers, we need to be innovative in terms of teachers' pay. We should be allowing teachers who teach here to pupil place their kids into our schools. Let's say they drive in from Manassas. We can be giving teachers bonuses for working in schools that are harder to place teachers in. What this board has done is create this massive top-heavy retirement plan, and you've got young teachers, you know, my kids, now my 22-year-old, she's a business major, so she's thinking about retirement, but let's face it, you're a young teacher, you want to be able to afford where you live, you want to be close to your school, and so we need to be thinking not about what is this leadership team and our staff going to be retiring on, because that's, you know, it's who's it serving. We did up teachers' pay because there's elections coming up, but yes, thanks.
In the teacher satisfaction survey that was done, there was a disparity. There are a number of schools where there's very low turnover, and then there's some schools that have high turnover. And part of the issue needs to start with the principals, the leadership of the schools, and making sure that the principals are supportive of their teachers and that they are creating an environment in which the teachers are able to do their jobs. So I think we need to look at the work environment that the principals are creating. And as Andy mentioned, I have heard teachers say as well that they are required to work well beyond the contract. There's lots of paperwork, there's all kinds of forms that they have to fill out, and that is a problem. We don't protect teacher-directed planning time. So again, there are all kinds of initiatives that are top-down, and that eats into the teacher's planning time, and so that creates a problem. The millennials and Gen X workforce that will be the new teachers coming in are more prone to change, and we could play on our strengths as a large school district if we really take professional development seriously, where we let teachers within the system try out new opportunities. And you know, as a large system, there's certainly not just changing grades, but changing roles, becoming a coach, grooming teachers to take on these leadership responsibilities, which I think will also incentivize them to stay in the district.
I come from a family of teachers. My father was a teacher, and his brother was a teacher. I have two sister-in-laws who were teachers. So I know for certain these teachers choose that profession not because of the salary, not because of the money alone, but primarily for their passion. So when we have such passionate teachers, those are the teachers that we remember, who shaped your lives. And I remember many of my teachers from my school days from India, their names and their memories and whatever they taught comes into our mind. Even today, it's because they were authorities in their subjects and they were given the freedom to conduct their classes the way they see fit. So my approach to teachers will be to hire the best, pay them whatever the best market demands, and then give them the freedom to design their classes the way they see fit, empower them. You know, I'm coming from corporate. I'm an engineer by profession. I'm running my own business. So if I'm hiring somebody to grow my business, I'm going to hire the best and give him the freedom to run the show. If I am micromanaging him all the time, he's not going to produce whatever he is best at. Then why did I hire him anyway? So when you hire teachers, if you empower them, if you trust them, if you give them more power, if you give them disciplinary authority in the class, that is when they are going to excel. That is when they are going to produce the best educational environment. So, and that is what is not happening today, if you look in Fairfax County Public Schools. If you look at the number of teachers and the total number of students, you can see that we don't have to have these large classes. We have these big classrooms, 25, 30 students in a classroom, because half of the teachers are not teaching. They are doing administrative work. That's what we have to end. We have to hire teachers and let them do teaching. And hire the best. That's what I would do.
Thank you. And that brings us to the third of our pre-formatted questions. The current board has stated they want to identify hot areas of overcrowding that are not in the current capital improvement program and may need a boundary adjustment. Mantua and Woodson are not included in this program. If our area is determined to be a hot area, what would you do to keep our school pyramid intact?
First of all, the school board is setting policy. So if I am part of a school board that allows us to have community schools as the policy, then that's a policy, that we keep community schools, period. Even we have to have trailers, even whatever we have to do. I mean, if I am the school board member and if I have majority there where I can make decisions happen, I can foresee what is coming, it will not happen. But if you set the policy as community schools in Fairfax County, that means the the geography decides where your kids are going to go to school. And we are not going to play around with the boundary policy based on socioeconomic or whatever other criteria that they are trying to bring in. So if that is the policy, then Mantua or any schools don't have to worry about it. We have to see things that are coming, like you have already seen, you have already projecting, it's already coming. This is the parental input. Now the school board has to work with this input and make sure that this is concrete information, and then that is how we can project what is coming and make sure that we have plans to have enough infrastructure to support the needs. So the policy is what is set by the school board, and if you make sure that that policy is concrete, then nobody can change it. And now what they're trying to change is a complete override of the existing policy, where all the necessary criteria, all the tangible things that we can measure is removed, and bringing in things that are completely irrelevant to a child's achievement. So, that's it.
Thank you.
Well, as I've already said, my priority is to safeguard neighborhood schools. And because Mantua and Woodson are not considered a hot issue, or I'm sorry, what was the phrase? A hot area right now. This is the ideal time, and for the school board to be working with the Board of Supervisors. What makes an area become a hot area? It is when there is overdevelopment in a particular area. So we need to be working with the Board of Supervisors now and saying, what is coming down the pike and how are we going to protect our neighborhood schools? So I think if I'm elected, I would want to be proactive in working with the Board of Supervisors on that. So, and then the decisions that we make, the other aspect of dealing with overcrowding, if it should arise, is we can deal with that with program placement. Right now, and this is my area, career technical education, we are really behind the times compared to what a lot of school districts are doing with career technical education. And the students that do sign up for the academy programs, they get bused from their base school to the schools that have the academy programs for one period. So they're giving up a period each day to travel to that other school where the academy is, take the class and come back. I would like to see us have magnet programs with the academies, and if we, with program placement, we should be able to deal with a lot of the problems with overcrowding.
So if you go back and you look at some of the strategy that's been used over the last decade by this school board, a lot of the overcrowding was strategic for them. I mean, they did a lot to create this overcrowding, and then they want to look as if they're solving the problem. But if you create the problem and your whole point is to solve it by introducing this new social order agenda, I mean, at some point, like we all did this summer, well, for many of us last year when we were seeing all of this unfold, we saw it coming. And there is a process for dealing with boundaries, and what you witnessed this year, especially with McLean High School, was totally ignoring the process. And you had many school board members bringing up other issues that have been overlooked and overlooked and overlooked for how long, and you've got massively overcrowded schools, and I can't even tell you about what we're going through at Oakton. But you've got Falls Church High School, and these schools get pushed back and pushed back on the list to be fixed. But one of the things is we aren't making developers pay their fair share. So if the developers are made to pay up, and if they're going to move in and what they're going to do, their development is going to impact our schools, then they should have to pay up so that money is there for either an addition or a new school. And when you talk about boundaries, I'm still trying to figure out, SAC programs. You look at how many people use our school-age child care. And if you're going to start busing kids all over because of their race, and to me, so I help kids file their college applications and do their essays, and one kid can say he's Hispanic because he's got a tenth of blood in him. I mean, are we going to be running DNA tests? So seriously.
Thank you. What are your thoughts on the appropriate way, if any, to teach family life topics in public school in a manner that respects private, religious, and cultural beliefs?
So if you look at our Virginia code, we are supposed to be teaching abstinence-only programs. And if you look at what's being taught, it's not abstinence-based. It is anything goes. It's moral relativism. Anything's right, nothing's wrong. That is not the message that I want being sent to our kids. Our kids need to be focusing on academics. There's biology, and then there's sex. And a lot of what we have is sex. And when you don't have parents, you have 200 languages spoken. And so when you don't even have parents who can speak the language and know what's being taught, and kids, you can guarantee they're not going to come home and bring it up. The last thing they want to do is talk about it. But what they're going to do is talk about it among themselves, and they're going to become more curious, more promiscuous, I would say. These are not family values that are being taught, and I think parents would be shocked to know how many times anal sex is brought up in a year. I've gone and watched the videos of bullying, sex trafficking. We need to have age-appropriate educational lessons. I am not against teaching kids things to keep them safe, but when you have, again, and I'm going to go back to it, all you have to do is look at who's profiting. All you have to do is follow the money. All you have to do is look at the special interest groups that control these programs, who writes them, who teaches them. Again, it's not benefiting us with our tax dollars.
It would be very helpful for FCPS to go back to look at the statutes from the legislature and limit the sex education program to what the legislature mandated for starters. If we want to add on to that as a community, as a county, and we are a diverse county, then we should have a very diverse advisory committee that is making recommendations to the board, and diversity of opinion, not just diversity of skin color. And so right now, the advisory board, the advisory committee to the board is very one-sided. It is full of Planned Parenthood and people that have a very decided opinion about sex education, and we need to have balance in terms of recommendations to the school board. We also should focus on what is going to help students be successful in life. And the Brookings Institution did a study, and they have what they call the success sequence. And if students follow the success sequence, Children who have grown up in poverty are 70% more likely to move into the middle class. Do you know what the success sequence is? Graduate from high school, get a full-time job, get married before having a child, in that order. That can alleviate 70% of the poverty in our country. And that needs to be the priority of our family life, well, of all of our education, but when we deal with FLE, that should be the focus.
When the sex education started in America, I was just growing up as a small boy in India. So the whole world over, now sex education is an accepted fact. So I am supportive of sex education because it's not a good idea for kids to learn things from wrong places, which was happening when I was growing up, for example, in India. So definitely sex education I'm supportive of that. But whatever the state required, that is what we had until a few years ago. So now Fairfax County wanted to do above and beyond. And that is when they went crazy. So that's what I would, fall back to. Whatever we had originally, remove the objectionable material, remove the mentions of objectionable words and things that the children don't need to learn at the ages that they are teaching. The gender confusion that they are creating for small children, that there is no need to be thinking about, gender identity at that time. So my first step will be to go back to wherever we were before the sex education revolution happened in Fairfax County. And I would say, I would start calling it sex education, because it's actually that's what we are looking for, sex education, not really looking for to define the families and this is the way. That's all has to come from homes. That's where the primary source of, teaching about morality or whatever, that the parents want their children to know or to learn. It has to happen at home. So at school, we can have basic sex education that we used to have before, and that the state is okay with, and we should limit it there. That's what I would do.
Thank you. The current school board has indirectly generated a lot of buzz about boundary changes due to a less than transparent approach to engaging with the community until they were forced to more recently with public outcry. If you're elected, how would you engage with the community on key decisions? Certainly. Just to repeat, the current school board has indirectly generated a lot of buzz about boundary changes due to a less than transparent approach to engaging with the community until they were forced to more recently with public outcry. So the question is, if you're elected, how would you engage with the community on key decisions?
The first thing that I would do is when I am sitting there, looking at the people, the 10 people who are coming and talking in every meetings, we should really listen what these guys are talking. So every school board meeting, 7 to 10 parents go there and give their opinions. And from what I have seen, these are like just a hogwash. Nobody really pays any attention to this. So as a school board member, that's the first thing that I will start doing. Listen to these issues. And then I will take up this job as a representative of the people. It's not like you're sitting there and then you're reading some material that is sent to you by special interests and then you're forming policy based on that. What does this community want? And how can you hear that? By being actively engaging with the PTAs, by being available to the people. And if you don't have the time, if you're busy, if you have other professions, other jobs, then this is not for you. This is actually a leadership role that you're providing to the community, to the society. So you cannot really count by the number of hours, how many hours that you can. So if there is an issue, you have to be working with the people and on time to make sure that the community's voices are heard. And that is why there is an election for this. This is a leadership role, where we have to really learn from the society, from the community. So PTAs, schools, having outreach to students, to listen to them, not just deciding policy thinking that the elite Ivy League degrees that these folks have is good enough to decide things for the society. The society as a whole has basic common sense. That basic common sense is what we have to rely on when you are, designing a a primary education system in a community, in a society. And that is what is missing today. They talk all these big policies, one Fairfax or whatever, lot of beautiful words. If you listen to them for 20 minutes, I'm telling you, I'm not a stupid guy. I have an engineering degree in masters. Okay? Masters in engineering degree. Okay? If I listen for 20 minutes to the school board meeting, some of these things doesn't make any sense. There is nothing I really get from this. And that is where we are really losing the community. So if you talk to the parents, like you guys, then we learn. And that is what the school board is not doing. And that's what I would do as a school board member.
Well, I am running for school board to represent all of you. That's the only reason I'm doing it. And I don't have skin in the game per se because my children have graduated. I am running because I have an extensive background in education that's very broad, and I want to put it to work for all of you. That's it. I have no political agenda, no hidden motives that I'm trying to achieve. So for starters, that's why I'm running. A lot of the work of the board is facilitated by the advisory committees that they have. And I will scour the county to make sure that we don't fill the advisory committees with special interests, but that it will be parents and community members that have expertise in a particular area. I will also make myself very accessible to you. I will give you my email and my cell phone number. I want you to call me and if you have a problem. And when you watch videos of work sessions, when I'm sitting in that work session, you will not see me speak about community members with disdain because I am there to represent you. Thank you.
So currently, only 2 of our school board members even have kids in our school system. And you've got several members on our board who don't have kids. And so if you don't live it and then you don't understand what it's like to be a parent. And you all probably hate those years where you've got one kid in high school, one kid in middle school, one in elementary school, and you think, how am I going to do this? Changing boundaries only totally exacerbates and multiplies those already big problems. And the policy that they're introducing or asking us or sort of telling us that is necessary, again, there's no data driving this except for junk science, junk studies. And we need to be understanding that we can be vocal. What needs to be changed is the school board meeting process, the ability to get comments. We live in the information technology age, information age. If we can put out surveys so invasive and garner that data, how is it that we can't put out surveys and garner parental choice about schools? And I know parents who may want to pupil place their school. We should be taking the time to survey parents to see how we could, there might be some problems that we could solve just by parents voicing some opinions over where they'd like to pupil place their school. Maybe it's for academy, maybe it's for sports, maybe it's for convenience to a job. But again, if we refuse to be innovative, we're just going to be chasing our tails and not making any progress.
Thank you. Dr. Brabend stated that busing kids outside of the neighborhood is not on the table as an option. Was he lying? And if so, should he be fired?
Yes, he was lying. He has said many times This is going to happen because one Fairfax happened, and I'm the superintendent. His definition of equity and diversity does not match mine. Equity is allowing people to make choices based on their own desires of where to live and why they want to live there. Diversity is not scripted. You can't script diversity. We have diversity, and at every school that diversity is different. And so this is totally, in my mind, backwards to what we believe as Americans, backwards to how we make decisions as Americans, and backwards to the priorities that we're looking at for our school. I go back to saying, if something's not working, fix it. We're constantly saying we don't have enough money. I've gone to school board meetings for 20 plus years. I've heard them talk about academics 5 or 6 times. 5 or 6 times. And we wonder where our money's going and why our kids are struggling and why we're using some schools, 40% of the kids are utilizing tutors. So let's focus on priorities, let's focus on academics, let's focus on success that's different for every child. And if you're looking for equality of outcomes, you're never going to get it. I could ask all of you what's your definition of equity. It's going to be different. Like I said, how are you going to define these kids by race? Already, look at all of us. I mean, there's a mixture, but yeah, when you start defining people by skin color and ethnicity and socioeconomics, that is not American. That's outright socialism.
Well, it gives me no pleasure to say that the superintendent was misleading the county, but I don't see any other way around that. Because if you go back and watch the work sessions over many months, there is a constant drumbeat on, as Andy said, when Fairfax happened, I'm the superintendent. We need to make every decision under the rubric, or if you're a Star Trek fan, I call it the prime directive of one Fairfax. And so if you are making racial and socioeconomic equity as the primary factor on how you determine where a student is going to school, then that isn't the makeup of our neighborhoods. You're going to have to move some students from their communities to another community to balance them out. How can you avoid busing then? And in the statement that the superintendent, Brabrand, gave right as school was starting, it was interesting. He did not use the phrase one Fairfax at all, even though every work session was peppered with that. I've often said, if you want to watch a work session and make it interesting, play a drinking game and take a shot every time they use the one Fairfax lens or equity, you'd get pretty drunk. So, but it was missing from his statement. So it wasn't consistent with what the has been the message for months.
Yep. He has been our superintendent for years, and under his watch, he was not able to fix any of our issues. Our issues became much worse. Minority achievement gap, academic excellence, everything has gone under him, gone down. So I would have hired him yesterday, long time before he lied. But whether the question about whether he lied or not, yes, absolutely he did. And he just, it's not just lie, it's abusive power. He's trying to help our opponents to get elected again. So it's not just lying for his own thing. He colluded maybe with somebody. I don't know. So what I'm saying is, this guy is not efficient. He hasn't fixed any of our problems. So he's not the right superintendent for a county like Fairfax County. We need people who can fix problems. We need people who will tell the elected members if they are misguided. He will tell them, no, that is not the way achievement happens, by redistricting and busing. But I have statistics here to prove that this is how achievement happens. There is opportunity gaps. That's what I would expect from a qualified superintendent. But he was not able to do that. He just played into the hands of politicians, became a pawn in their hand, and played politics, and finally lied to the community. When all throughout the year he was talking about, one Fairfax and boundary, and all of a sudden he hasn't even heard about it. That's not at all acceptable. He has to go. Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry, Clint. In the same time, we would go over 8:45 if we would ask another question with each candidate having two. We've had another candidate arrive. So, since all Providence and at-large candidates were invited to this, what we'd like to do is have every candidate currently up, please do your closing statements, and then we're going to give the candidate that arrived a 5-minute time to speak. Does that sound okay? Okay, great. The closing statements, I'm sorry.
Closing statements.
So as I have said throughout the discussion, that there are burning issues in Fairfax County. And I'm a businessman, I'm a problem solver. I'm here looking at these problems and opportunities to solve them. Because as I said earlier, I didn't come here for just one generation of success. I can see the path that the county school system is following. It will make the public school system worse, and maybe 10 years from now, every reasonable parent has to look for private schools to have good education for their children. And public schools is what makes ordinary people, middle class families, poor kids, find themselves. If you don't have quality public schools, I'm a product of public schools. My wife is a product of public schools. Both my children, product of good public schools in Fairfax County. And the AAP programs, the advanced programs they have. So whatever they're trying to destroy is what created my success story in this country. So I want this school system to keep having those programs, the advanced programs, as well as the quality public education that we used to have. I want to make sure that the lack of focus that the current school board has, thinking globalist agendas and things that don't really matter to us, offering people what they never asked for. Here people are asking things in Mantua. So how many minutes I have? Sorry. 30 more seconds? 2 minutes. Okay. So you're asking things. And I go to Mount Vernon area. I hear parents are really troubled. They say, these schools cannot help. We want charter schools. They say, Vincent, you're not going to fix it. You live in a different part of the country. You don't understand what we're going through. So there are a lot of things parents are asking and making suggestions for change. Reaching out like this. You're way ahead of time. You're telling, okay, we are going to have an overcrowding issue here. But they are not listening to any of this. They are giving you things that you never asked for. So I see that the globalist agenda, I see that special interest right there, which has to end. And I'm going to be that change agent. I'll be a breath of fresh air on the school board, and I will make sure that I'm a solutions-oriented person, not just a sweet talker. And check my website, vincentforschoolboard.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for inviting us to come tonight. It's been such an honor to be with you. I love to talk to voters, and I'm glad you guys are engaged in the process. As I said in my opening, I am running because I love the county and I want every child to succeed. That's my only agenda. And so I bring extensive background as a former teacher, someone who's worked at the federal level on policy, as a very active parent volunteer. I've seen, I've worked with the most pressing issues of our day, the career technical education that I mentioned, the at-risk youth and programs that actually close the achievement gap. My own children were blessed to be in advanced academics, and so I've seen that part of it as well, and the importance of rigor for the highest ability students, and I want to champion that, make sure we do continue to have differentiated education. My last job as a volunteer was to chair the Government Relations Committee at TJ, where we actually secured some additional funding for TJ from Richmond. That rarely happens, but we need to be proactive on that. I do want to champion multiple pathways for students. 75% of our students start college, but less than 45% graduate in 6 years. We need to do a better job in terms of career exploration and giving kids options, whether it's military, expanding our ROTC programs, as well as the career technical education. And grit and independent thinking is something that I also want to champion in our schools. We don't need more social justice warriors. We need graduates who can argue both sides of an issue and respectfully disagree. Again, my name is Cheryl Buford. I ask for your vote on November 5th.
So I'm going to be really brief about this, but I've shared this at other venues. I was born with a radical facial disfigurement. And so if I had walked into this room, everybody would know I was here. I became a very resilient child. I want all children to be resilient. I want all children to be successful. I want parents to know how to measure success in their children. You hear special ed parents say, my kid's not learning anything. You hear advanced academic parents say, my kid is not being challenged. You hear gen ed parents saying, my kid is bored. You see the statistics of Justice High School, where how many kids, they couldn't be granted status because they had a lot of kids who just are not showing up for school. Now, used to, I mean, when I grew up, nobody utilized tutors, but everybody wanted to go to school because you knew that that was your key to success. So if we have schools where our kids are not learning and our parents are not happy and they can't measure achievement and they can't help their kids, and we've got kids having to utilize outside tutors, and we don't have books, and we don't have, and their kids aren't using online textbooks, and we're sending kids to websites, Al Jazeera and NPR being a couple of them. But we have to fix something. What we need on the board are people who get education. I've sat on a small startup school board. I've studied international, federal, state, and local education law. I've gone to school board meetings. I've raised my kids. I tutor these kids. So we need people on the board who live the walk and talk the talk, and they know where they're coming from, and they understand parents, and they listen. I get calls, like I said, all the time because our kids aren't organized. I get calls all the time because our kids are struggling. I get calls because the teachers are struggling. Something has to be done. Something's wrong. You've got 10 fabulous candidates running, but I tell you, the best thing has been getting to know these fabulous people who have the best of intentions. We're not out to launch a political career. We're not taking money from special interests. No one owns us. The only people, special interests we want to serve are the parents, the teachers, the taxpayers, and the students.